Howdy. This is Mission Texas.
A political podcast about winning Texas by 2032, or else we may lose the White House for a generation.
I'm one of your hosts, Alex Clark.
And I am Kate Rumsey.
Other podcasts may focus on the day-to-day or the next election, but we are keeping the eyes of Texas on the bigger prize. What happens after the next census?
All right, our next guest is a former prosecutor like myself, a veteran like us. He is running for Attorney General for the state of Texas. He's another one of the candidates that we're really excited to have. He's sponsored by Vote Vets, just like me. So we're happy to have him. Welcome to the podcast, Tony Box.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, so Tony, you have such a similar background to us. You work at a big law firm, which is, I assume, where you're at, just like the others that are on this podcast. But like me, I think I was just not really political before jumping into my race. And it seems to me you have a very similar background. Like you're a public servant, you've been a lawyer and a dad here in the Dallas community. So what got you into running?
So you're right. I haven't been political. Follow politics closely, but never run for public office before. Never even run for student council before. So this is my first foray into politics, and it's a big one. But what got me off the sidelines and into the game is that I saw a need, and so I saw a need for a different kind of candidate running a different kind of campaign with a different kind of message, and so I wanted to put myself before the voters and provide an alternative. I think it feels like there's dark times going on right now in the country and in the state of Texas. Democrats are locked out of the federal government, all branches. Democrats are locked out of all offices in the state of Texas. And so it's voters are hungry for something different, someone different, someone who's sincere and someone who they think can help flip the various seats, but in my case, the Attorney General seat.
Yeah, candidly, you very much are a different kind of candidate. Just the research we've done, kind of where you've come from, where you've been, what you've done. But for those listening who have not done the kind of deep dive that we have, I'm a big comic book guy growing up as a kid. I'm very fascinated in origin stories. So tell us how you got to where you are now. What were the key events in your life that took you to this moment?
I grew up in a single family home. My mom and my sister, so it's three of us, and went to a public high school. And when I was in high school, one of the formidable events in my life, which I tell people, which is very true as to how I became a public servant, is when I was 16, I was working at a grocery store, and I was helping a lady out to her car with her bags. And when I was there, a guy snatched her purse, took off running with it. And instinctively, I ran after him and tackled him. And while we were on the ground wrestling, he took a gun out and shot me in the stomach. And over the course of several months, I was in a hospital and I was recovering. And I really thought about what I wanted to do with my life. And I decided that I would live a life of public service. I'm a religious man. I promised God that I would do that. And I really tried to keep that promise to God and to others who I made, that it wouldn't be a waste of life. I didn't want to live my life in vain. So the best way to not waste my life is to serve others. And so from there, a couple years later, I joined the Army. I joined both the ROTC as well as the Army Reserves, served 4 years in each. And then upon graduating from college, I was commissioned into the active Army. I was a battle tank commander. And I served as a tank commander. And then from there, I went and served a few years later, after I left the Army, as an FBI agent, missions all over the world. I was on a SWAT team. As part of that, I served in New York after 9/11, and then left the FBI and eventually worked for Congress for a couple of years. And one of the areas which is definitely relevant to my seeking of the Attorney General's office was I became a federal prosecutor and I prosecuted drugs, guns, violent crimes, and later transitioned to white-collar large fraud cases. And so I think I know that is directly relevant and important for the attorney generals. And so that's a snapshot. There are other pivotal moments in my life, but those are some of the big ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're the only one I can think of in the race that has law enforcement background, right? And the attorney general is the top law enforcement here. And I think as somebody who also does white collar like you, we do a lot of work or see a lot of work, especially in healthcare fraud with Medicaid fraud in the attorney general's office. So I think it's really interesting about your law enforcement background, not only as a prosecutor like me in the Department of Justice, but also as an FBI agent. I mean, just being able to investigate, large scale crimes, especially after 9/11. And so, like, how do you perceive that experience as it relates to the attorney general's office, especially as, what it could be doing better? Because we know what our current attorney general is, doing and not doing. So how do you see that fitting into the attorney general's role?
So I think that the experience is really helpful. It's strange because so many attorney general and attorney general candidates do not have law enforcement background. They're oftentimes traditional politicians, and they work their way up in the political ladder. And next thing you know, they're either running for attorney general or they are the attorney general. And so I think that they miss a key piece of experience which could help them, but I won't need that help. Like you, I've worked a lot of cases with the attorney general's office on the white collar side, and their Medicare, Medicaid investigations. Oftentimes, they're part of joint task forces. And so, because I worked those cases, I understand those cases, and I understand the nature of an investigation and a prosecution. I think I will bring that to bear on the job. And also, just as a prosecutor, I know what it takes to build a case. I know what a big case looks like. And another thing that's important is when you've held these jobs, you should know what cases to bring and how to prosecute, but also what cases not to bring. What's not a good case? What is not substantiated by the evidence? And what is going to ultimately hurt an individual or damage the credibility of the office by bringing a very weak or a political case?
When you think about more than just competence, which I think the bar is so low for the outgoing attorney general, uh, Senate hopeful Ken Paxton. Other than competence, what do you see as how would you articulate the difference between a Republican attorney general and a Democratic attorney general in Texas?
I think that Republican attorney general in the past and currently are truly focused on politics.
Hmm.
I don't see any focus on the individual voters of Texas, the citizens. There are cases against all kind of actors and entities and individuals who you can see that they're politically motivated. Where a Democratic AG, from what I've seen, oftentimes are fighting for the people. They are seeking recovery of funds. For example, many of these lawsuits, the federal government recently has taken money from the states, and a lot of Democratic AGs are fighting to get those funds, fighting successfully to get those funds back. But that's not taking place in Texas. And I just do not see a care and concern for the voters. And I think that Democrats bring that far more than Republicans do.
So, in other words, it could be like a check against Republican corruption.
Absolutely. The Republican corruption, it's rampant, and you need somebody in the Attorney General's office, the most powerful, the chief legal officer of the state that can check. Elected by the voters, not accountable to the governor, not accountable to the president of the United States, who's going to do the right thing and not be concerned about making the governor mad or another politician in Washington, D.C. mad.
Yeah, we saw a lot of lawsuits that seem very politically motivated, right? From the current attorney general, where they're suing the Obama administration for Obamacare. They're suing Biden for X, Y, or Z. Here and where I'm from in North Texas in Coppell, they were suing our Coppell school district for what they perceived as like DEI practices. And so it's just like, you wonder, like, what are the other things that we could be doing in the state to actually like bring funds back to the voters, maybe protect voter laws. I mean, there's just so many things that seems like you could be doing that would benefit the everyday person. But I wanted to go back to your bio a little bit and talk about your military experience and how that, brings up leadership quality, especially as a commander of tanks. I mean, I didn't realize that about you. That's incredible. uh, but also, especially in the context of what we're seeing with recently with Venezuela, I mean, and how you perceive that. Because as a Democrat, I mean, here in the state of Texas, like, how do you see your military background, and also how do you contextualize that with what's going on? Because I know the AG wouldn't necessarily be involved with what's going on with foreign policy, but certainly as a military person of a state with a lot of military in it, you probably have an opinion.
Yes, I do. Yes, we are a military dense state. And I have an opinion because, so one is you mentioned leadership ability and leadership qualities. That is really what I bring to the table as much as anything else. And so I've spent more than 20 years in the United States military, combined my two different enlistments. First was as a tank commander, and the second as a JAG. And so leadership experience from start to finish. And so understanding people, understanding the mission, understanding taking care of individuals first, more so than yourselves. It's very important. People understand it, they realize it, they see it right away. And so if you're a leader of a large office like the Attorney General's office, you need your people working for you and with you to trust you and to believe in you. And I think the military enhances that ability to do that. Brings you credibility, but it also teaches you how to be sincerely a leader, caring for your people. And in terms of Venezuela, I bring that. I talk about that from the perspective of someone who has served overseas. I served in Iraq for nearly a year. I served as a JAG officer, and in a different capacity, non-military in Afghanistan for a year. And so I think it's a misguided foreign entanglement that we should not be in. I think that it was rash and not well thought out policies and positions of the administration saying we're going to run the country. First thing that comes to my mind is with whom, right? Are you going to put boots on the ground? Are they military people over there? Who wants to be in Venezuela fighting over oil? Because the president has said, largely this is about oil. He said many things, but one of the things he talked about was oil. But no one wants to be over there fighting for that. We don't mind deploying, but not in a foreign entanglement for a long period of time with an uncertain mission and outcome. It's just not. It's an abuse of used soldiers and service members, and I don't agree with it.
This office, the Attorney General's office in Texas, has become so the brand is so nationalized and polarized, right? Before the divorce, Angela Paxton used to brag that my husband wakes up, goes to work, and sues the president, right? Whenever there's a Democratic president. How do we rebuild trust, like operationally? How do we actually do that to make people understand this is not a political office in the sense like you described earlier, that we're going to do this for the people, that there's some higher calling that's kind of above the partisan fray, or at least there should be, especially when the most likely Republican nominee, I think at this point, is actually a former classmate of mine, Aaron Wrights, who says things like Democrats are domestic enemies and political violence is purely on the left and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you seem to be swimming upstream on trying to make the office what it's supposed to be.
Right. So I think that there are a lot of political actors in that office who are attracted to far right-wing policies of Ken Paxton and others. And so one of the things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have a mass change in personnel of people who do not care about the mission of the Attorney General, and they just want to cater to politicians and engage in culture wars. And so there's going to be some people who need to leave the Attorney General's office, and we replace them with non-political actors. And second, there needs to be an understanding of everyone who works for the Attorney General that we are not a political organization. We are an organization for the people. We're an organization to seek justice, follow the Constitution, and just inculcate that from top down. I will convey that message to every person. I will convey that message to the top lieutenants. They, in turn, will convey that message to their subordinates, and it will trickle down to every single person after that. And people understand the mission statement and understand that there's a different sheriff in town who's not going to operate the way the office has generally operated. And it'll work because I've seen it work many, many times in the military.
Yeah, I think there's like this, let's own the libs kind of mentality. And we see, like maybe he was probably, using that office to do that. So it's good to hear have somebody with a servant's heart to be back in that office to actually serve other people. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on how your campaign is going to play out? Your like, what are your goals? The next like 30 to 60 days, especially as we gear up to the primary. Like, where are you going? Who are you going to talk to? Like, how are you going to get your name out?
So we're going anywhere and everywhere. We're talking to folks. We're doing media appearances. We're doing podcasts like this one. I have some great surrogates that are going throughout the state talking about our campaign. We are building a volunteer army, and we're being as aggressive as humanly possible to try to make people aware that this campaign is here, is viable. It is a good campaign, it is competitive, and it will be competitive in 2026, which will likely be a very good year for Dems.
Yeah, I mean, Kate's absolutely right. You got to focus on the here and now. It's a sprint to March 3rd, the primary. Um, if we can for a moment though, let's imagine you've won 51% of the vote on March 3rd and you don't have to worry about a runoff and you have to switch gears immediately. For our listeners, and sorry, Tony, it just seems like right now there's probably going to be a runoff between two of y'all at this
Maybe.
point. Maybe you'll pull out ahead. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Um, but once there is that shift, whether it's after March 3rd or whether it's after the runoff, how do we get this message of policy as politics? Like, it's good politics to be focused only on policy. How do we translate that into a winning electoral strategy? How do we bring in new voters into our coalition doing that?
You talk to them like real people. You help them understand the issues on their terms, and you make them aware that this is one is make them aware how critically important the Attorney General's office is, because most people don't know. And they don't know that it's the people's lawyer, right? It's a lawyer for all 30 plus million Texans. You know, there's no focus on the individual, and to tell them, look, this is how the Attorney General impacts your life. And you should go to the voting booth well informed about what the Attorney General does and the candidates. The crazy culture war, owning the lib statements of one guy and the other guy who spent his life of public service. What the best way to judge the candidates or any person and what they're going to do is what they have done in the past. And so you can look at the candidates and see who's been a public servant and who has has dedicated their life to others and who has spent their time talking about owning the libs. And so I do think you talk to them like regular people. You meet them where they are. You help them understand. People are ticked right now, just incredibly mad at government writ large. And so you say, look, I understand you're mad. I'm mad too, but we can't wallow in it. We have to do something about it. Elect the best people, and I'm the best person for this job.
So I wanted to ask, because the Attorney General, especially that office, has gotten real close to flipping the state, right? Like Justin Nelson in 2018 got really close with Beto O'Rourke. I mean, it shows you that, and I think in one of our recent podcast episodes, we've talked to other candidates about how even down ballot races, I don't know if I would consider yours down ballot, but it's, lower maybe than, governor and the Senate race, but that those are some races that voters pay attention to maybe and are maybe easier to flip than others. So how do you see that, especially as we compare it to other years where in specific races, like, but it's not a monolith, like not all the races are being tied together. I'm sure like a lot of voters are going to be block voting, but there are people that are paying attention to that vote differently in different races. So how do you see that compared to other years, especially the golden year of 2018, which we talk a lot about, where we got within percentage points?
Yeah. So I think that this is a year that's comparable to 2018, but better. So 2018 was a Trump midterm. This is a Trump midterm. Voters were ticked. Voters are really ticked right now. The environment is favorable to the Dems. We have a great slate of candidates who regardless of who wins the offices, they're going to bring something really different. And they're going to bring constituencies and it's going to be, I believe, a greater voter turnout. There's going to be more Democrats that turn out. And so and many of them, as you alluded to, will be splitting their ticket or will be choosing, one person and maybe leaving something blank on another. But I think that this year is going to be extremely favorable. It's been like nearly 3 decades since the Dem won statewide in Texas. Well, just in Florida, Miami, just not even 2 months ago, or at the very end of last year, after 28 years, a Democrat won the mayor's race of Miami for the first time in 28 years. And so it can be done. I tell people all the time, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's impossible. And this is not going to be easy, but it is our very best year, very best opportunity. And so we can do it. What they did in 2018 with Beto, he did a phenomenal job energizing folks. And so if it were one day after I win the primary, I'm out conveying that message that I just gave to you. We can win this. We can do hard things. We need to bond together and work like heck to support each other. I think that the Democratic Party in Texas is doing a good job. They have Democrats in every race. That's going to help juice turnout. And so when you add all of that, it's doable and very possible.
I think you're absolutely right. I think we are uniquely pessimistic sometimes, Texas Democrats. And I think that's part of why we have the longest losing statewide streak. There's no reason for it. And I think Attorney General is one of those races that is often the race that does win, even in very red states, because I think voters can understand what you're talking about, that this is supposed to be an office that is for them, not for political grandstanding, not for wasting the state's money on meritless lawsuits, that kind of thing. But help me understand like exactly how we're going to do the work of getting out the vote and bringing those people over, because we know that millions of people in 2018 even voted for Greg Abbott, but then also voted for Beto O'Rourke and Justin Nelson, right?
Right.
So how do we make sure that those types of people who maybe they are on the fence, maybe they just need some sort of permission structure to come over into our tent. How do we signal that other than, obviously in your individual conversations, you're very compelling, but how do we make sure that a state this big can hear what they need to hear?
I think there's a lot of money, effort, and energy that's going to be poured into the state. And we are all the candidates are focused on winning the state. We do realize there's a lot of politicians that talk about it. I've heard Colin talk about it, Talarico, Jasmine. The percentage of people who don't vote in the state I think we have the lowest percentage out of any state, is what I've heard. And so we really do need to crank up our voters registration. Tell people you're registered, but you know people who are not registered. Please go out and do that. I remember when Obama was running and how well that was done. People were calling everyone that they knew to say, vote for this guy or take a look at this guy. And so we really do need to take a person by person approach, every one of our counties, and spend time there. People feel neglected. And if you explain, just like you said, Alex, if you explain to them how important this office is, that they have a guy like me, veterans highest approval rating in terms of the type of people that voters trust. We have a veterans rich, dense population. People generally are receptive to sincere messages, and they can see a fake politician from a mile away. And so I think that once we get out there, it's going to take work. It's going to take door knocking. It's going to take a lot of money, and it's going to take nose to the grindstone for months and months and months and months. But it'll be worth it.
I'm curious, Tony, because it seems like you weren't as politically involved like me, and you're kind of an outsider coming in. Like, do you have any like first impressions of what's going on? Like anything that has surprised you is about campaigning so far? Because like right now, I know that it's kind of endorsement season, and we're like right before the primaries. Is there anything that you're like, okay, I didn't realize it was going to be like this, or I'm really pleased to see or have hope, or is there anything like that you're coming in? Because I had a lot of first impressions and I thought, whoa, like I had no idea it was like this. And I'm
Yeah.
really surprised.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a ton. So one is how big the state is, how difficult it is to get around the state, how much money it takes to communicate, the methods, the various ways you must pay attention to in order to communicate. So whether it's social media or in person or television. So those are all things, the mechanics of campaigning that surprise me. But I am also surprised when talking to people. It's a lot of fun to hear people tell you their stories and
Hmm.
to it's touching in an extreme way when people say, "I believe you and I trust you. I'll give you my hard-earned money." We've had thousands and thousands of donors, small donors, who had said, times are tough, but here's a small amount of money, and I don't take that lightly. And so all those things are surprising. I didn't know that I would have this many thousands of people supporting me, and I'm heartened by it. I'm humbled by it. And so, yeah, every day is a surprise, something different.
Same. And I think I also was working at the same time as probably you are. So I'm wondering, like, how are you working, or are you working still? Like, how are you doing that? I know you got some kids at home. I think that they're
Yeah.
in college. I think I saw they all Morehouse guys. So how are you doing it? How are you doing that personally, just balancing it all and also getting around the state? Because I wonder that too, because that's the realities of the job. How do you campaign all over the state while maintaining, any semblance of being able to do work and being a father?
Yeah. I've cut back on my work. I haven't stopped working, but I work less and I spend more time on the campaign because it demands it. And
Yeah.
so it's a very difficult balancing act. And you spend a lot of time thinking about the best ways to balance your time. And so I sleep less, I work more, and I try to be as efficient as possible with both my job and with my campaign. Sarah gets help, people who are friends, people who are new supporters who want to speak on our behalf, who want to get the message out. And so that's how I'm doing it. We're trying to leverage social media and other types of media. And so, yes, I'm working and maintaining a legal practice at the same time you're campaigning is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, it's an important reminder for our listeners that these candidates are real people and they have real responsibilities outside of campaigning and trying to make our state a better place. And so anything we can do on a personal level to help them goes a long way. And it's going to be very important. I know the kind of thesis of this show is not focused on one election or on one news cycle. We're talking about what's coming down the pike in 2030 when we have 5 new potential congressional districts added and all this new political power. For those of you who are tracking that, you need to understand that the Attorney General's office is going to be critical after the 2030 census because the decision to defend or not to defend the maps that get passed by hopefully a Democratic legislature, um, that's going to be the Attorney General to decide how and to what degree to get involved in all that.
Yeah, I'm very pro voter, right? I don't understand the move afoot to make it less difficult to vote. I'm very much that you should make it easier to vote, and it's good for legal folks who are legal residents and who have the right to vote to vote. And the hurdles that are put up to stop voting is extremely disturbing.
Softball question related to that. Should the districts be competitive to make the politicians more accountable, or should they be very safe for the parties?
They should be competitive to make the politicians more accountable. Look, they should be. Competition is good. Anyone, whether you play sports or not, you just understand the competition is good and it makes you work harder. And if you don't have competition, then you get lazy. So, yeah,
Lazy and corrupt.
yeah,
Because
lazy and corrupt. Correct.
why bother with trying to get everybody's votes? You don't need them anymore. You just need your primary voters, and then you're good.
Well, Tony, we like to talk about good news. So if there's any good news that you want to share with all of us, we'll go around and whether that's personal or political or professional. Obviously, you jumping in this race is a huge amount of good news. But anything else going on in your life?
I think, yes, a lot. This race lately in the last couple months, I have rekindled so many good friendships from around the world people have met who have contacted me, or maybe I've contacted them, who I fell out of touch with, and now we are communicating again. And so, if there's one good thing to come out of this campaign, which there are many, but one piece of good news is I'm having an opportunity to have meaningful conversations with people I care about. And when I'm not talking about politics, one of the things I talk about is or law. I talk about mental health and taking care of your mental health and relationships. And I talk to my sons. They're in their 20s. They call their generation the loneliest generation, even though they're the most connected. And so I talk to them about meaningful relationships and about how to maintain those and how very, very important they are. And so having these friendships and rekindling them and talking to folks, it's important to me. It's good news.
Yeah. That's a great good
Yeah, it's
news.
great.
Yeah. Alex, you got any good news to share?
I do. I'm gonna use this opportunity to humble brag for just a moment. I had to keep this under wraps according to the rules laid down by D Magazine. But I was recently named in the most recent edition of D Magazine as one of the best lawyers under 40. I know
Awesome.
you were all surprised who are looking at the video that I am under 40 because of my big gray beard, but in fact, I turned 36 in November. So
Yeah.
I have a few more years of being under 40. Hopefully, I can continue to win this thing.
Yeah. Hope you do.
Nice. Yeah, I guess if I were to share some good news, I just some personal. I went to Vegas recently, and I saw the Backstreet Boys at the Sphere. So that was a lot of fun for me and my one of my best friends. We got to go out there just for a little bit of a break, and that was nice. Outside of the hustle of our jobs and being in the podcast and everything else, just in politics and so many things are so negative. It feels like, and just need something to like give you a little bit of a smile, and it gave me a big smile to be able to go out there with one of my best friends. That's some good news from
Okay.
all of us. Well,
Well, can we do a quick lightning round because you brought up the Backstreet
yeah,
Boys?
yeah,
I'm gonna
go for it.
expand it beyond Backstreet Boys in case Tony's not a fan personally. So I'm gonna say, uh, favorite boy band song, go. Kate, you can go first since you saw them, and Tony can be thinking about his favorite boy band song.
I don't know. Like, I guess that favorite boy band song with Backstreet Boys. Um, they had so many good ones. I Went That Way.
Oh,
Gosh, they had so many good ones from that concert and the album that they had on. But my friend and I, we saw NSYNC together too when we were kids. So there's a lot of NSYNC songs, especially around Christmas.
mm,
Their big NSYNC Christmas song, I think, was a really good one.
yeah.
But yeah,
Right now, because I have a little girl obsessed with K-pop Demon Hunters, my favorite boy band song is Soda Pop by the Saja Boys.
yes, we love Soda Pop. My daughter sings it at home. Tony, did you see K-pop?
uh, no.
It's
No,
all right.
it's
Your
okay.
kids are not really of that age anymore.
Yeah,
Right,
your
right.
sons are like, I'm not seeing that.
A little older. Bye, bye, bye.
Okay,
Yes,
that's a classic.
we
Yeah.
want to say that to the Republicans in our
Okay.
government.
Yeah.
Bye,
Maybe
bye,
I'll have that song playing in the background the night we win.
Well,
yes,
didn't like Ryan Reynolds bring it back for the new Deadpool movie? Wasn't there like a whole bye bye bye
yeah,
scene?
yeah. He was doing the like, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that. Speaking of Tony, do you have any like pump you up songs like when you're about to like call a bunch of donors to get you like I need to like really get in the mood or I'm about to go like give a speech? Like, do you have anything that like an anthem that you're thinking about?
So I'm not gonna throw away my shot. I'm a
Oh
Hamilton
yeah,
guy.
Hamilton guy. Me too.
Yes.
Me too.
This is my shot, and I don't plan on wasting it. And
Yep.
so yeah, that's one of the ones.
Got a
Oh wow, look at that!
signed playbill in Manuel Miranda, the 10-year anniversary. I won that in
No
a
way.
it was a thing donating to the Texas Civil Rights Project. Actually, I'm very excited to get this.
Cool. Well, Tony, that's all of our good news and some lightning round questions. Do you want to wrap up with the last word? We give every guest, what do you think it's going to take? We talked a little bit about it, but, I think a lot of people, especially someone like you might be thinking like, what's the plan? How can people help with the plan? And so what do you think is it really going to take to flip Texas? Like what are all the factors combined that you think, and are we obviously this coming fall?
Yeah, not just your race, and not just your race, right? Like big picture. 2030, we need the legislature so we can get some good maps. 2032, so we can use those newfound electoral votes to help get a Democratic president. All of that, like what the long view.
One thing that we need to do is to understand that Texas is a huge state where people have disparate interests, right? Disparate things going on. Maybe it's the rural communities where the hospitals are closing, but in the urban communities, there are different interests. So we have to speak to people according to their interests and not just engage in consult and speak and be afraid to be sincere. Engage in radical honesty and radical sincerity with folks about what's going on. And even if the news is not great, you have to take your medicine sometimes in order to feel better. And so having those conversations, understanding that West Texas is different from East Texas, is different from North Texas, is different from South Texas, and being smart about your constituencies, who you speak to, but honest, not just just talking to them and making false promises. And so, yeah, that's all of our politicians need to do that. They don't need to engage, be afraid to say what their position is. Just be honest. Just be honest, and people will understand that, and they'll feel that coming from you.
How are you imagining that kind of communication and being able to talk to voters? I think you talked a lot about door knocking. I'm
Mm.
wondering, like, how much door knocking have you been doing? But also, how do you plan to communicate? There's a lot of texts and mailers and media, and you got to have media buys. Like, how do you see that with the AG's race, especially as it fits with all the other races going on on the slate? Come that fall.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's down ballot, but not far down ballot. And so the oxygen will be sucked up by people running for Senate and governor, a lot of oxygen. And so when there's an opportunity to speak, we have to do all those things you said, media buys, you have to get on the air, you have to do advertising in the mail. I have a mail firm that's going to help us get mailers out so I can introduce myself to the voters.
Yeah.
And door knocking, how much door knocking have we done? We've done quite a bit. We are likely going to partner with other people. We didn't, the folks in the SD9, that Senate race that's going on, that's very encouraging. They do a
Hmm.
good amount of door knocking. So we're going to collaborate with them and go out, talk to the voters. At the same time, we're helping Taylor. We're going to talk to them about our race. And so it's going to be a lot. And I have a good number of young volunteers, energetic. And so we are going to, they love door knocking. They have no hesitation. Uh, it gets them out, it gets them off their computers, and it gives them a community. Like what I spoke about earlier, folks being lonely. It is really wonderful to see folks forming a community around this campaign of getting together and mailing letters and thank you notes and making calls on our behalf. And so we're going to try to continue to build up our volunteer base, and to do all those things you mentioned. We're going to have to spend money to get on the air. But I think people are receptive to this campaign. I've done a good number of media appearances because people want to hear about the plan, hear about how are we going to replace Kim Paxton, who's going to be the best guy to do that. I say guy because there's 3 Democrats running, but who's the best person to do that in this race?
Yeah, and if someone wants to volunteer or donate to you or become the next intern for the Box campaign or whatever it is,
Yeah.
how can they support you? How can they find you? What's the best way to get connected?
So Tony Box for Texas is my website, and it's also all my socials. And there's a volunteer link there. And if you volunteer, someone will contact you and donate. There's also opportunity to donate there. But I've mentioned a couple of times, a very big state, incredibly expensive state to get around and to advertise in. And so people have told me if you had $100 million, you still couldn't advertise adequately in the state of Texas. 4 big giant markets, they're all their own media markets. They're all very expensive to advertise in. You have a ton of mid markets and you have a ton of small areas, and you're not going to be able to get in front of every person, but you do the very best you can. And so please contact me, read more about us at Tony Box for Texas, follow us on our socials, and that's how folks can help us.
Amazing. Well, anything else, Tony, that you want to share with us about the race or how you perceive the AG's office since we have a little bit of time?
So I do perceive, I want to talk a little bit about the function of the AG's office. So when folks don't understand what the AG does, people ask me, and I try to tell them that it's the lawyer for all Texans, and some of the things that the AG office does, some of the priorities of the statutory priorities, and some of the priorities of the various AGs, and some of my priorities. So one of them is, child support enforcement. People don't know about that. The
Yep.
AG office is the principal enforcement agency for child support enforcement, and
Yep.
so I mean that it may not affect your life or it may not be important to you until it's important to you, right? And courts have ordered child support, and people evade that. People who are not good actors don't want to pay their responsibilities, and you need an attorney general who is really cares about that, who understands that people are being hurt. I have personal experience with it. When my dad was ordered to pay child support, he evaded it for years, and so it affects people, and it's not right. And the attorney general should treat it with importance that it deserves. And of course, there's consumer protection, which I don't believe the Attorney General Office for years has spent time or energy on it. They've instead sued the federal government every chance they got, or sued Beto or some other Democrat or some other woke party that they perceive as woke. So, you know, that type of enforcement is also important, and I think that my background lends itself to being able to speak about that well and to understand it and to build a wonderful team. Kate, I know you're in the DOJ. One of the things that I would hope to do is to bring in some of this talent that is
Yeah.
available. So it's a lot of DOJ folks and other folks who are left to government because they do not agree with what's going on. And so I do hope to bring in some of that good talent that's out there.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point. Yeah. Because I know a lot of colleagues that you may know also, Tony, that have left the DOJ. I mean, I don't know if our listeners or anyone really is paying attention to that, but just about everybody's leaving.
Yeah.
And there's a huge gap right now in law enforcement and talent and people who I thought were career federal prosecutors, honestly. Like people I thought were going to be in the DOJ for the rest of their lives until retirement have left to go to private practice. And so I think making that point of like we need to bring back some really good lawyers and talent and also make that an attractive place for lawyers wanting to go to do the job because they can be the advocate for consumers, they can be the advocate for kids, for all the other issues, Medicaid fraud, the insurance companies. So I'm really glad you brought that up because do you perceive that in the legal market? Because I know we're all lawyers here, but our listeners might not be. But can you speak to that too from your own personal experience?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if this number is correct, but I think it's probably not far off. I heard 5,000 prosecutors have left DOJ. It's a huge number. And it affects what goes on in the world. I mean, these cases, these white collar cases are not being worked. They are not being having the attention focused on them that they should. And so there are a lot of bad actors who are getting away with fraud and all kind of crimes because the government, this administration has largely retreated from enforcement, whether it's you name it, every type of enforcement, healthcare enforcement, tax cases. I work a lot of tax cases. The IRS is a shell of what it used to be. And so they don't have the ability to work these really big cases. And so it affects everybody. If you're a victim of a crime, and I see this all the time, literally at least once a week, someone says, I contacted the FBI or the DOJ and I could not get help. In many cases, the attorney general should be able to step in. Once somebody got defrauded, I think it was $3 million, recently called me. And I said, did you call the attorney general's office? And they said, yes, but they said that they can't help me. And I find I find it to be appalling. Someone should take the complaint and investigate it. And it's a shame. But these people, like you mentioned, Kate, a lot of these prosecutors who have left, they're public servants in their heart. They want to remain public servants if they can, but they just couldn't. It was untenable in this administration, so they left.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad y'all are both bringing this up. I mean, one of my good friends from law school, one of the very best of us, like crazy smart, like over a 4.0 GPA type person, you know what I mean? And he was at the DOJ up until very recently, where he couldn't stomach being there, and they're under the way it's being run now.
Yeah.
it was never about money or prestige for him. It was about service. Like it's the only thing that explains someone like him taking a job that pays a government salary, right? I mean, he could be out there in big law making all the money. Um, and hopefully we can get him back into a role like that, and maybe creating a Texas he can come home to and join an administration run by you or one of your competitors. I mean, that would be just an incredible boon for the state to have really high caliber people in the interest of serving the people.
Plan to really bulk up the criminal enforcement, the consumer protection branch. They have a consumer protection branch, but it doesn't do consumer protection the way it should. And I plan to really bulk that area up.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for hopping on with us. We know you're busy with your campaign. We're wishing you the best of luck. We look forward to seeing what happens in the primary. We love to support veterans. I love that you are supporting Taylor, who's also a veteran, supporting veterans. So thank you so much, Tony.
We did.
We're going to sign off for now and say, God bless Texas.
You can follow us on all socials at Mission Texas Podcast. Email us at missiontexaspodcast@gmail.com. This episode is edited by Juan Jose Flores. Our music bumper is by Adam Pickerel, and our cover art is by Tina Sohn.